What is going on, everybody? Welcome here to the CB1 show. It is just me again. So, Chris out for a third consecutive week to begin the 2025 season, ruled out with an illness, and at this rate, probably should have just put him on IR. But hopefully he's back next week. Chris, if you're watching this, I need you here on the channel, man. But Chris is doing whatever he needs to do to take care of himself at the moment, which is the most important thing. And hopefully we can have what we imagine as a regular show with Chris and I both giving our takeaways from each week of the NFL season. But here we are, week 3. My first takeaway is the importance of special teams. We saw 3 blocked field goals this week that, well, 2 of them literally changed the outcome of the game. The Rams, up until that point, Josh Carty had made all 4 of his kicks, and then he lines up for the game-winning one, and Jordan Davis comes in with those big paws and knocks that thing out of the air and returns it for a touchdown. And then you have the Cleveland Browns, who also blocked a kick, and then setting up their own 55-yard field goal for the win. Like, special teams is so important, okay? And, you know, I like to joke around with some of my friends about long snappers and punters and first round kickers and stuff like that, like Sebastian Janikowski. And we kind of make a joke out of it, but I mean, these guys are literally the difference, right? Because all it takes is this much to win and lose a game in the NFL, and special teams proved their importance this week. So you should never take those guys for granted, because although they might be the least football like players out on the football field, I mean, Look at the difference that it can make for a team, right? So, special teams, that is my first takeaway from week 3 of the NFL season. Now, moving into more team-specific things. The Texans, they're in trouble. And last week I said that I'm not ready to hit the panic button on them, because I did feel like they could go into that game against Jacksonville and come out with a win, but they didn't. Now you're 0-3, and now it is officially time to say, you know, we need a win now or we are in trouble. Like, this is a team that I thought could win the division, because I thought that this division in the AFC South would continue to be one of the weaker ones in the NFL. But that has not been the case. And the Texans don't have the luxury of playing around early with these games, saying, hey, you know, we can lose one here or there. Now it's just about finding a way to win. And the lack of talent along the offensive line, and look, they've tried to invest in it, okay? Was getting rid of Laremy Tunsil a questionable move? Yeah, I mean, sure, he had his struggles with penalties last year and isn't that same top-tier tackle like we're accustomed to seeing him be, but he was definitely their best guy, and they traded him away, right? And then now you're just trying to play Moneyball, essentially, with your offensive line. Like, I like the fact that you try and draft some guys like Arianti Ursuri, and, you know, I mean, I guess you try to bring in guys with potential like Ed Ingram in the offseason, but none of those guys are proven. There's no talent, there's no experience, and this is what you get, right? You're going to hear me say this time and time again throughout the season, the importance of the trenches. And this is proof of it right here. It doesn't matter how good your quarterback is, if you don't have a front that can create a run game, which they don't have Mixon right now, but that run game is not that great because of the offensive line. And CJ Stroud looks like he's regressed because of this offensive line. Don't get it twisted, guys. CJ Stroud is a good quarterback, but he doesn't have the guys around him to keep him a great quarterback. Like, the importance of the offensive line can never be stressed enough. And every time I see a team refuse to bring in talent, right? It's one thing to attempt to bring in talent, and there's another thing of actually bringing in the talent. It's so disappointing, because CJ Stroud is so much better than what he has looked like these past few weeks, and I have a hard time blaming him for that when there are so many other issues, like trying to slot in rookies along the offensive line and not bringing in experience along that offensive line. Like, I'm going to keep reiterating those things because it just pisses me off that much. And their offensive play calling, pathetic. Just pathetic. And it's been pathetic for the last 2 years. So, we'll leave it at that. Now, another team in the AFC South that I want to talk about. And on a more positive note, the Indianapolis Colts. My God. Look, if you didn't want to take this team seriously, which I wasn't yet, because I was like, okay, let's not get too ahead of ourselves. This could be the Saints from last year. No. Look, I know they just beat the Titans, who could be in contention for the number 1 overall pick again. I don't care. You blow out bad teams. You win those games decisively. And that's exactly what the Colts have done. And they beat a good team in the Denver Broncos the week prior. Like, we have to start taking this team seriously. This is a team that right now, as of week 3, is running for the 1 seed in the AFC, which is crazy to say. Daniel Jones, I think, has to be an MVP frontrunner as of week 3. I'm going to keep emphasizing those things as well. And Jonathan Taylor looks like he is emerging as one of the best running backs in the league. And look, we know that. We knew that already. We knew that Jonathan Taylor was one of the most talented guys in the league. But now that he has a proficient proficient pass game with Daniel Jones, it's only opening up more opportunities for him. Okay? Let's not get it twisted. We all know how good Jonathan Taylor was already. But to see him put up these numbers, right, I think is a testament to better offense in general. And it starts with the quarterback in this situation. Shane Steichen was on the hot seat to begin the season, and I think that seat has really cooled down because we knew that the offensive creativity was there. We saw it from his time in Philadelphia. We know what that offense can look like at its peak, and it's incredible. It's no question why he's a head coach in this league. He is so talented. And to see him finally get an opportunity to showcase his offense and his creativity and skills as a play caller, it's good for Shane Steichen because he deserves it. And I think Daniel Jones as a person also deserves it. He got so much backlash, and understandably so. He was not good in New York. So to see him kind of flip the switch and kind of find a system that meshes well with him, when we've seen guys in the past like Anthony Richardson and Gardner Minshew not do as well, it's a good feel-good story for everyone in that Colts organization. And I think there's a lot more people doing their day-to-day job with a lot less stress now. But they should treat it as if their job is still on the line because it's done some pretty good things through the first 3 weeks of the season. It's crazy to say this, but the Colts could be hosting a playoff game later in January. They just have to keep it up, and there's no reason why they can't. This offense looks phenomenal, and you could argue is the best in the NFL right now. Now, speaking of the Eagles, because of Shane Steichen's connection, I think that the Eagles are a ticking time bomb. I think it's only a matter of time before this looks like the 2023 Eagles that we saw before. It is not easy to just replace your coordinators, right? Because we saw it with Steichen and Gannon. Now we see it with Kellen Moore. And with the amount of guys that they let walk in free agency on the defensive side, there is a lack of pressure being generated from the edge rushers. Their second cornerback position with Adoree Jackson has been a huge point of emphasis for Eagles fans, and one that is generating a ton of concern, especially with the way that Isaiah Rodgers played, which we'll get to him after this. It's so important to generate a pass rush, and I think no team needs to understand that, no team understands that more than the Eagles. Like, the Eagles have always made it an emphasis to replenish their edge rushers and just their defensive line in general. But we're having a whole different conversation if the team looks as flat as they did in the first half. And I'm not one to play hypotheticals, but my point is that this offense is not super inspiring, and it's going to take full 4-quarter performances if this team is to be a legit Super Bowl contender. I'm not questioning their ability to win this division and to make the playoffs, because I think both are more likely to happen than not. But again, I think right now it's more or less the talent of this team that is propelling them to victory opposed to the schematics. And I just think it's a matter of time before these things catch up to them and we see something similar to 2023. They just don't look as dominant, and they don't look as free-flowing as they did last year. So I know it's lofty expectations, but that's what happens when you win the Super Bowl. The expectations are sky high, and people expect you to perform at a high level. And and I'm just not getting the same flash out of that offense. And there are glaring holes on that defense that I don't know can be fixed by the scheme. I don't care how good you think Vic Fangio is, because heck, Vic Fangio is one of my favorite defensive coordinators in the league, but at a certain point, you just need guys in there that can actually get the job done. And I just feel like they're lacking at those positions more than you would like for a team that has Super Bowl aspirations. All right, let's transition now to Isaiah Rodgers of the Minnesota Vikings. And I'm a Vikings fan. Historic performance, okay? I'm not going to talk about this game too much. I'm just going to talk more about Isaiah Rodgers and his performance, because it's a historic one, and it's one that we have to address. The first time in NFL history that a player has forced two fumbles and scored 2 defensive touchdowns in a game. And to go along with that, he also had an interception. Now, he goes on to win NFC Defensive Player of the Week. All of those stats, by the way, in the first half of the football game. Also had a great pass deflection against T. Higgins in one-on-one coverage, and earned the first ever 99.9 PFF grade in NFL history. Do what you want with that. The point being is he played a perfect game as a cornerback. And for him to do as much as he did at his position is incredible, because a lot has to go right and a lot has to come your way for those things to happen. But every time the ball went his way, he made a play. And I think it's a testament to how well he is prepared, not just through the season, but throughout his career, right? Just so much adversity that he's gone through. And I think it's all led to a moment just like this. And the fact that now he has a prominent role and he is given the ability to show what he can do and to be the type of playmaker that he is, it's a feel-good story. Again, it's kind of similar to like how we were talking about with Daniel Jones. It is a feel-good story. This is a guy who is finally making his mark on the league when some people, I think, believed in him, and now somebody's giving him a chance and he's blossoming. And that's why you hear so many Eagles fans complaining about it now, because like, we had Isaiah Rodgers last year. He was making plays like that for us in the small sample size, the limited snaps that he got throughout last year. So Isaiah Rodgers, great performance. The Atlanta Falcons, okay? What are we doing? Like, I thought that went after Minnesota, this team would just build on that, just momentum, and just start stacking games. And this was a very winnable game against Carolina, a team that I don't think is good. They won't be competing for anything this year. Like, what are we doing in Atlanta? Like, it's not looking good. And I'm not going to hit the panic button on this team. But you lose both of your division games, which your division games are the most important. How do you come out that flat? Especially against a team of that caliber. What are we doing with Michael Penix? Like, the way that they have handled their quarterback situation these past few years, it's a disgrace. And honestly, I blame this all on Raheem Morris. I don't think Raheem Morris was a qualified head coach when he got hired. I don't think he brings that much defensively from a schematic point. I don't think he's much of a motivator. And he's not someone that I would run through a brick wall for. He just doesn't get me motivated. Like, every time I see him, I'm just like, you are in a football stadium. Let's feed off the energy. Let's bring some of that enthusiasm, that excitement. I just don't get it from him. Like, I just feel like sometimes we're just riding that wave a little too much. And I think they may have just gotten to too much of a high throughout the week and weren't totally locked in. And then we end up back here against Carolina. I also think that, and this is not a discussion that I've heard, and maybe it's one that has been talked about already. I understand how important Bijan Robinson is to this team, but Michael Penix is your quarterback, and he is more important to Bijan Robinson. I don't care what you say. The quarterback position is the most important position in all of sports, and it doesn't change with different guys around your team, okay? Because ultimately, if you don't have a quarterback that can orchestrate a good game on a week-to-week basis, these other guys will blossom, but it also won't result in wins. I think Jalen Hurts is a good example of that. If Jalen Hurts isn't just an above average, a proficient quarterback, right? I'm not saying that Jalen Hurts is top 10. That's a discussion for another time. But he's a good enough quarterback to take some of that weight off the shoulders of Saquon Barkley. We need the same thing to be happening here because as good as Bijan Robinson is, this team is not going to start winning until they get Michael Penix in a rhythm, which is my argument that I'm making here. Michael Penix played his best ball at Washington when he was in the shotgun and he was dropping back 40 times a game. 1, 2, 3, get that ball out, and we're slinging it across the yard with high levels of accuracy. But the only way that he did that was by getting in a rhythm. Now you're putting him in an offense where, he's in the pistol and sometimes he's under center and we're running this heavy play action stuff. And it's just more catered around Bijan Robinson than it is with Michael Penix, when I feel like the offense should be more catered around Michael Penix, your quarterback, than around your running back. And look, Bijan is a good enough player where he's going to adapt to any scheme. And you kind of expect that. Like this is why people talk about the running back position being replaceable and why you shouldn't invest high in it and stuff like that, is because, you have guys that are capable of doing multiple things, but you rarely find guys that can do it at this high of a level like how Bijan Robinson has. And his ability to just adapt to any type of play style is what made him a top 10 pick. And I think that there are ways to still have him be a proficient runner, still be a true threat out of the backfield in the passing game, with Michael Penix still playing to his strengths. But right now, they are playing more to the strengths of Bijan Robinson than they are to Michael Penix. And I just think that is a huge mistake, because at the end of the day, nobody has more of an influence on the outcome of a game than the quarterback. And they need to start treating Michael Penix like that. They have to just give him the keys and just say, hey, Michael, we trust you to pass the ball 40 times a game. We've seen you do it at Washington. That's why we drafted you with a top 10 pick. We're going to just let you go loose now, man. The ball is in your hands. Get it to your playmakers because you're more than capable of doing it. But I just really feel like they're limiting him, his ceiling, and that's why they scored 0 points on Sunday. They got to get this figured out quickly. Like, Michael Penix is way better than this, and I blame this totally on the coaching staff. The Browns, they got a huge win over the Green Bay Packers, and as a Vikings fan, absolutely ecstatic. Look, the Browns, it's a damn shame that they don't have a quarterback. Well, they do, except, he's doing other stuff off the field and then, re-hurting himself. Is that karma? Maybe. But anyway, we're here to talk about the Browns defense here, okay? Because the Browns defense ultimately won them this game. And for them to put up that performance against the Green Bay Packers was absolutely astounding. I don't think anybody expected this. I don't know if anybody put money on the Browns this week. Like, I don't think anyone gave them a chance. And this defense comes out here and only allows 10 points to the Green Bay Packers. Myles Garrett is a game wrecker. We knew that. Carson Schwarzenegger, I had a lot of questions about that pick. I thought he went a little too high, but now he's looking like a true defensive rookie of the year candidate. They have playmakers all around. JOK. You have Denzel Ward. There's guys all over the place, and they're playing some really, really good football. And you can make the argument that the Browns might have one of the best defenses in the league right now, especially after that performance against a team like the Green Bay Packers, who just a week ago people were saying, hey, this team can make it all the way to the Super Bowl. And now they have come back down to earth here in week 3 after losing what I would think would be a very deflating game against the Cleveland Browns. Like, they could just not get anything going. Josh Jacobs had a miserable game. Jordan Love didn't play much better. Cleveland, man. It's a damn shame, because if their offense was just half as good as they are now, man, that team could legit win the division. That defense is insane. But Flacco, Gabriel, Sanders, I don't care who you put under center, it ain't happening this year. But good for the Cleveland Browns. Big win for them. Chargers. This is another team with a fantastic defense. And look, I said it last week, and I'm going to say it again. Jesse Minter will be a head coach in 2026. He is just too damn good. Just too damn good. And if he's not, lucky for the Chargers that they retain him for another year. But a huge mistake for all the teams that are going to need a new head coach, because Jesse Minter, he's got it down, man. I mean, just such a phenomenal defensive coordinator. Can't say enough good things about what he's done. He is just as responsible for turning this thing around as Jim Harbaugh has been. So it's unbelievable. And Justin Herbert, he's surprising me. Look, I had Herbert as a top 12 quarterback heading into this year. And now that they're giving him more volume to throw, it's similar to like Michael Penix. Like, this is a guy who needs to be dropping back and throwing the football because they played their best game when they're in rhythm and they're allowed to sustain drives, because both of these guys have incredible arm talent that is undeniable. And the Justin Herbert conversation has always been difficult because it's always been a series of hypotheticals. And it's tough because there's nothing that you can do except evaluate the quarterback for what they've done, regardless of the talent around them or the coaching staff that has been put in place for them. But look, now that the run game isn't what they want it to be in LA, and now it's totally reliant on the arm of Justin Herbert. This is what happens when you put the ball in Herbert's hands and you allow him to get in as many throws as he needs to. I think this week he threw, 45 passes or something close to that. Like, that's what we got to be doing, man. That's what we got to be doing. But I got to give Justin Herbert his flowers. I think him, and we talked about Daniel Jones earlier, like, MVP conversation right now, guys. It's legit. It is legit. And the Chargers are legit contenders too. Look, this team is firmly in place as the number one team in the AFC West. And with the way that things are looking for some of those other teams, I don't see anybody competing for that AFC West division title, which is crazy to say. But, are the Chiefs going to look the same as soon as all their weapons come back? No, I think it's going to still take them time to build chemistry and get in that groove. But the Chargers, the continuity that they're playing with right now, the complementary football, they're well coached, they're talented. It's going to be tough for any of those teams to come back, even the Chiefs. The Bears, they're putting it together. And look, I think I mentioned this in the week 1 video after their choke to the Minnesota Vikings. This is a team that it's only a matter of time before they start clicking. It is too talented. Caleb Williams, Rome Odunze, DJ Moore, Luther Burden, Cole Kmet, Colston Loveland. And don't get it twisted, that offensive line has guys, right? Braxton Jones played a phenomenal game this week. Didn't give up a sack. I don't even know if he gave up a pressure. Joe Thuney, you bring in Drew Dahlman. You could go on. My point is that this offense is too talented to not be good with a play caller like that. And I'm telling you right now, it is only a matter of time before this team looks the way that they did this past weekend. You can say what you want about the Cowboys defense not being good. This is sometimes what a team needs to build its confidence. And I hate to keep bringing up the fact that I'm a Vikings fan, but as a Vikings fan, it is concerning because I think that the Bears are going to be good, whether it's in weeks, whether it's in months, whether it's in the next year. It's only a matter of time. And this past weekend on Sunday was a promising start for the Bears. 49ers sneaking their way to 3-0. And, the narrative going around is the last time that they were 3-0, the last 2 times under Shanahan, they made the Super Bowl both times. Now, I'm not going to go as far as to say that they are going to be the NFC representative in the Super Bowl, but it is very possible because they've started 3-0 with so many of their guys down, right? Like Purdy and Kittle, like those are 2 huge losses, and then even Bosa goes down mid-game, and he's done for the season. And this team is still 3-0. So watch out for the 49ers. Look, I had this in my predictions that they would make the playoffs this year. And the big reason for that is Robert Saleh. Robert Saleh is such a good defensive coordinator. And it's, in my opinion, one of the best tandems in the league with Shanahan coordinating the offense and Saleh doing the defense. That's a duel right there. And good coaches always find a way, which is why I had confidence in the 49ers this year. And now, pivoting back to the NFC North, the Detroit Lions, they are totally fine, okay? Packers defense is good. Jeff Hafley, they know what they're doing defensively. And we didn't talk about the Packers defense, but they played one heck of a game this week too, and they've played phenomenal games through the first 3 weeks. That defense is just really, really good in Green Bay. And it was the first time trying to get things together offensively for the Lions. So, look, the Lions are good. They're a good team, so talented. And look, I think that they're still really well coached. John Morton's doing a great job as the offensive coordinator there, and they're also doing good defensively as well. So I'm not too worried about them, but the Ravens on the flip side, we should start to get worried because my biggest critique of the Ravens this offseason, and I didn't think it was, enough for me to be like, oh yeah, like this team is not going to make the playoffs. No, this is a playoff caliber team. As long as you have Lamar Jackson under center, you will always be in the playoff conversation and Super Bowl conversation as well. But they should be worried because this defense, the lack of pass rush that they're getting, and I understand this past week, no Nnamdi Madubuike, no Kyle Van Noy, but even when they are in the field, I don't feel like it is one of the better units in the league. And kind of like how we talked about with the Philadelphia Eagles, you need pass rush from the outside. Like, as important as it is to have a guy like Madubuike out there creating pressure right in the face of the quarterback, it is so important to be able to generate pressure from the edges, collapse the pocket, and set your edges on the outside. They just don't have that. They just don't have that on that team. So I am worried about the Ravens because their offense, I think, has looked good, not great throughout the first 3 weeks, but their defense has looked terrible. And again, this is a team that is competing for a Super Bowl, and they look good, but not great. Actually, I wouldn't even say this team looks good. They look all right. The standard is much higher than this. And maybe we need to start having a conversation about Harbaugh because as consistent as they've been consistently good, but never good enough to win that big game, which they haven't done since, I believe, 2012. So, we're pushing almost 15 years since that happened. I don't know. This team is way too talented to look the way that they did against these top caliber teams because, these games against the Lions and the Bills, this is the measuring stick to see how close you are to winning those games. And, both of those games, I believe, being played in Baltimore, if I'm not mistaken, regardless of where it's played, you have to play your best football wherever it is. And the Ravens are not doing that right now. And their schedule only gets tougher from here. So let me know your guys' thoughts and takeaways from week 3 of the NFL season. We'll see you guys all again week 4. Good luck to all of your teams, unless your team is the Pittsburgh Steelers, because I need my Vikings to win. But until then, we'll see you guys later. Peace.